my dear children of class 6. This is the part 2 of the story, The Snow Goose, written by Paul Gallico. I have already started up with the story where we have almost dealt with half of it, and I have already introduced to you the main two characters of the story. One is Philip Rader. And another 12-year-old girl whose name is Frida. So these two characters, they develop a true friendship towards the end of the story. And as you have already read, this little girl Frida has come with a wounded white bird to this man Philip Rader, so as to get a medical treatment from him so that his white bird would be cured as soon as possible, because she believed that this monstrous man was an ogre, a man-eating giant, and he had a magical powers to heal things. That's why this little girl, hearing that, had come to Philip Rader's lighthouse, where he lived in an isolated way, where he lived in isolation, totally alone from the society and from the people, because I already told you he had a hunch and he looked terribly bad and he had many physical disabilities, having crooked claws. But all the more, forgetting about this man, this girl was very much curious about the bird and has come to this man's place, where this man starts treating the white bird, and in the process of making the splint for the bird, the man, he narrates a story to this little girl. So what does this man narrate about? Let us continue from where we had stopped. That is page number 41, and we'll start with second paragraph. Let me read for you all. The bird, now see, the story told by this man goes like this. The bird was a young one. Now he talks about a bird. And he was a young one, no more than a year old. The bird was 1 year old. She was born in northern land, in cold land, in chilly northern land. Far, far across the sea. There once upon a time there lived a bird far across the sea in the northern frozen land, flying to the south to escape the snow and ice during winter. The bird, in order to escape the chilly winter, the snow and ice, and the bitter cold and chill there in the north, she tried to come towards the south in order to get the warmth. What happened to her while having a flight right from north to the south? She had been seized by a storm. She was caught in a storm, and the storm had whirled and struck her about. See, it was extremely cold in the north, and the bird, in trying to flee that, had been trying to migrate towards the south. But on the way, the bird was being caught in whirled means she was moved round and round by the storm, and it was caught by it. It was a truly terrible storm, stronger than her great wings, although she tried to overcome the heavy storm with her flight, but she couldn't, because the storm was even more stronger than her feathers. And there was nothing she could do but fly before it. She was totally helpless, and she could do nothing but to fly and fly and fly. Then for days and nights it held her in grip. For days and nights she was under the grip. She was under the severe influence of the heavy storm. And she was over a different land. After flying for days and nights, she found herself in a different land, totally strange, and surrounded by strange birds. She was totally being covered, and she was accompanied by different breed of birds that she had never seen before. She had never seen those kind of birds in the north before. At last, exhausted by her ordeal, at last the bird was so much exhausted. She was so much slackened, weakened by her ordeal, means by her horrific, by her bitter experience. She had sunk to rest in a friendly green marsh. She saw a watery area with some green vegetation, and she was so much drained, physically drained and exhausted. She thought to take a rest in the green marshy land, but only to be met by the blast from the hunter's gun. She only took the rest to be shot by the hunter's gun. So this is the story narrated by the man Philip Reader. So in fact you will find that this Philip Reader is talking about the white bird which Frida had brought to his lighthouse room. A bitter reception for a visiting princess. See here, the white bird has been compared to a princess, a beautiful visiting princess who tried to visit south from the north, but it was a bitter welcome. It was a bitter reception for the poor little girl who was being shot by the hunter in the green marshy area. We will call her the lost princess. See now, the little girl Frida is slowly opening up herself before this man, and she is trying to speak and communicate with him. And she says that yes, you are correct, and we are going to name this white bird the lost princess, who is lost. And in fact, who was lost earlier and is being brought to a totally strange land, being wounded by the hunters. And in few days, she will be feeling much better. He reached into his pocket and produced a handful of grain. Philip Reader, he reached his hand, he put his hand inside the pocket and he took out some handful of grain. Then the snow goose opened its round yellow eyes and nibbled at it, and the white bird pecked at the grains given by Philip Reader. That means the white bird was slowly getting recovered and healed. The child laughed with delight. The child is exhilarated and thrilled and joyful to see her white bird eating those grains. And then suddenly caught a breath with alarm. Then all of a sudden she was smiling, having a communication, but all of a sudden she was alarmed as the full import of where she was pressed in upon her. Now she realized that where she was. She was in so-called monster Philip Reader's house. People considered him terrible. They were scared and frightened and terrified to come before this man. Now she is right in front of them. So this very thought struck her and she was totally alarmed. And she again got frightened that she is in front of this man Philip Reader. And without a word she turned and fled out of the door. So she got scared. Then she, without telling anything, she turned and she fled. She ran towards the door. Now she got frightened. Wait, cried Reader, and went to the entrance. But this Philip Reader, who seemed to be monstrous, as I told you, he was a kind, generous man. He cried, he exclaimed, wait, why are you running? The girl was already fleeing, running down the seawall. She was already running down the seawall. Usually the wall, which is, seawall means the wall which is usually built in order to protect the building or the house from the waves, sea waves and tides. So why the sea waves and tides? Because it's already been mentioned and it's already been told that Philip Reader, he lived in a lighthouse. Lighthouse is usually built in the isolated area near the sea where nobody dares to come. So she had already reached the sea wall, but she paused at his voice. But once she heard the voice of Philip Reader, she gave a pause. She poised over there and looked back. What is your name, child? Asked Philip Reader. Then the girl was so frightened and she said, Frit. Oh, said Reader, Frida, I suppose. Where do you live? With the fisher folk at Wickledrop. I live there at the Wickledrop. Will you come back tomorrow or the next day to see how the princess is getting along? Are you going to come to give me a visit to the little wounded princess, that is a white bird? Then her thin voice came back to him. She said, she was pretty confused as what to answer back. She was left with no answer. She said, then she was gone. Then after days passed, the snow goose recovered rapidly and by midwinter was already limping about the enclosure with the wild pink-footed geese. See, now by midwinter, the white bird had already started to limp, means started to slowly move towards the other pink-footed geese. and had learned to come to fed at Raider's call, and had already learned to come and eat when it was being called by Raider. So now the white bird or the white snow goose is getting healed. And the child Frith was a frequent visitor. See, so lovely of this child. She did not run away. She wasn't scared. From that day onwards, she was a frequent visitor who frequently came to visit Philip Ritter and the snow goose. She had overcome her fear. Why? Because she had overcome her fear. Now she was no more frightened of Philip Ritter. Her imagination was captured by the presence of the strange white princess from a land far over the sea. Why? Because her entire imagination, her entire mind was being captured and filled with not the appearance of Philip Ritter, but her mind was filled with the image of the snowbird, which very much fascinated her. On which they traced the stormy path, a land that was all pink, as she knew from the map that Raider showed her. Raider had also showed that this bird from Canada had come all the way from north to the south to the land of England in order to escape the cold. On which they traced the stormy path. See, on that very map, they traced the stormy path from where the bird had migrated to their place. And traced the stormy path of the lost bird from its home in Canada to the great Mars of Essex. See, the bird, they had found on a map that snow goose had migrated from Canada in the north to the land of Essex, that is the English land. So the bird had migrated from Canada in the north to English land in the south, and they also traced the route where the bird was being caught by the heavy severe storm. Then one June morning, a group of late pink feet, fat and well fed from the winter at the lighthouse, climbed into the sky in ever-widening circles. See, one morning, late pink feet, having a pink feet bird, well fed, stomach was full, during the winter time, climbed the lighthouse, climbed into the sky in ever-widening circles. With them, her white body and black tips, pinions shining in the spring sun. When that bird moved towards the lighthouse one morning in the winter, one could only see the white body with beautiful black pinion that was glittering in the sun was the snow goose. The snow goose had already climbed up the lighthouse and was flying in an open air with its body glittering, shining in the rays of the sun. It so happened that Frith was at the lighthouse. This incident happened when Frida was still at the lighthouse when this white bird, she flew right from the lighthouse. Her cry brought Raider running from the studio. The girl Frida, when she realized that white goose, snow goose was flying in open air, Frida, she shouted so much that Raider, who was inside his studio, inside his room, he rushed out to see what has happened. Why was Frida shouting? Why was Frida exclaiming? Look, look, the princess, she is going away. Look, our lost princess is going away. Raider stared into the sky at the climbing specks. As the bird was advancing its footsteps or advancing its flight, Raider kept on staring at the snow goose. Oh, he said, the princess is going home. Listen, she is bidding us farewell. See, Raider says that the princess is going back to its home in the northern Canada. Now it's bidding us farewell. Out of the clear sky came the mournful barking of the pink feet. See, out of the sky, they could hear a sad tune of the white bird, and above it, the higher, clearer note of the snow goose. Then see, above it, they could see their own huge snow goose. The specks drifted northward. See, those specks means that flock of birds, they moved towards the sky, they moved towards northward, formed into a tiny, they could hardly be visible, and they all vanished in the northern sky. with the departure of the snow goose. Now departure of snow goose. Why? Because the snow goose is already being killed and now she has already left for her home. Ended the visits of Fritz to the lighthouse. See, this is a very emotional point. After the goose left the lighthouse, this girl Frida too stopped visiting Philip Rader's lighthouse. Then Rader learned all over again the meaning of the word loneliness. See, earlier Philip Rader led a lonely life without anyone in his life. But when this girl visitor Frida had entered his room, he had a little bit of company. He had built a deeper friendship. But once the snow goose, fled to its home, this Frida also, she never ever came back to visit this man Philip Rader. And Philip Rader, he realized that he was born to live alone and he understood the meaning of the word loneliness and solitude. So this is the end of the story, my dear children, where the bird returns back to its original home in the north in Canada, and where this little Frida also stops paying visits to Philip Rader, and Philip Rader is left in isolation again. He is left in solitude again. So this is how the story ends. We shall come up with some more videos in the next series. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.